Noting the time and the presence of a quorum, I call this meeting of the Acton Finance Committee to order. This is being recorded. There is not remote participation today. With that, the first item on the agenda is public participation. I see at least one person standing at the lectern, so I will turn to the participation lectern.
Thank you, Tara, over here from West Acton. I've got a question for you. I would like to speak about the Memorial Library Home Rule Petition warrant article and the citizens petition later on. Would you let me, should I speak now or maybe later? We'll ask questions about what I know about things.
So I believe that particular, the home rule petition for the library, and we just got the draft with the new, and Alex Lenz is the person assigned to that, and he cannot make it today.
Okay.
So he is prepared to, did he reach out to you? He said he was going to reach out to you.
Well, I'm not the lead petitioner, but in Memorial Library Home Rule Petition, I believe I will be opposing that article. I don't know yet because we haven't seen the language. So how do we know if we're opposing it? You know what I mean? So we'd like to see the language, but I'd like to speak to you about that. Regardless of what it says, I'd like to make a comment about it.
Go ahead, make a comment, but do plan on connecting with Alex, because he did say he was going to reach out to you. I believe he's already sent you an email.
Oh, great. My question about the, okay. So the Memorial Library, the town home rule petition is about expanding the Memorial Library Board of Trustees, but there's a backstory to that, and I'm nervous about whether it's going to try and control the Citizens Library trustees, because I feel like that's unlawful. There was a 9-page memo from a lawyer written to the town about this, which we haven't even gotten a response to. Anyway, they say, oh, that's old, but no, it's the same issues. So I am concerned about, as a taxpayer, I'm concerned that the town is spending money on legal fees for such a thing, and that it could get very large if people believe that it is unlawful what they're doing, and I don't know, because I haven't seen it, and so that gets to the citizens petition, which there are a bunch of people that are also concerned and would like town meeting to weigh in on whether they want a blank check for that pursuit to try and control the Citizens Library trustees, which we believe, and the lawyers on the Friends of Citizens Library believe, that the state law governs that, and if they want to change it, revoke anything in the deed or the original purposes, they can go see a judge, and we can all talk about it. But this home rule petition is sort of a way around going to the judge and asking, maybe, haven't seen the language, it's possible that they're asking for something that the legislature doesn't even have the authority to give. So there may be legal fees associated for no reason at all, in my opinion, because everybody's getting along, they're having joint meetings, and everybody seems to be fine. And so there seems to be this really aggressive pursuit of trying to effectively do something unlawful. So thank you.
So I agree with you that there's no language at this time, so I would say time is running short. We would like to see that language so that we can discuss it further at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Do you have another topic?
No, it's all the same topic. Thank you. Well,
thank you.
MBTA zoning, Habitat for...
MBTA is not on here.
The Habitat for All, what's that going on with that? Are you guys going to take a position tonight on that, or are you going to get some information first, like how much impact, how many hundreds of houses extra it'll be, or what?
We will pick up the articles later on in the...
Can I speak then about that?
Briefly, yes.
Yes, thank you. These water guys want to talk, but they didn't want to get in line, so they're in line, right? Thank you.
We will take all public participation and invite them to come to the lectern and state their name and their address.
One more. Stu Leslie is running for select board. Raise your hand. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
My name is Ron Parenti. I'm here with Mike Geis. We're on the Water Resources Advisory Committee, and we'll be holding an outreach meeting in late May to talk about stormwater and how that's funded and managed, looking at the possibility of forming a stormwater utility with an enterprise fund and so forth. So we'd like to get on your agenda for a meeting in April if we can. Dave Martin suggested that we do a dry run of what we're going to present at that meeting. If you don't have time to listen to us for 20 minutes, I expect you don't, we can certainly send you the charts in advance, and you can comment on those, and we can do that at one of your future meetings, or we can do that via email or on one-to-one with one of your committee members, however you would like to do that. But we would like to have some feedback from the Finance Committee that was recommended by Dave Martin to address, to pass this by this committee.
Yes, thank you. I believe we have passed some emails back and forth trying to come up with the right date. The reason why I pushed off in April is because we are trying to get everything in a row before town meeting.
Right.
Would the first meeting in May be acceptable to you?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
That would give us enough time to make whatever corrections are necessary for, the meeting that we're scheduled to have is in May 29th. So
Okay.
that would give us a lot of time.
So I'll respond back to your email, because I did propose, I think this meeting, and that was too early.
Right, that was a little bit too short, but
But then I do want to make sure that we don't interfere with what we have to take care of between now and
Okay.
annual town meeting. So I will respond back to you with the first meeting in May. And
Okay.
don't worry about taking 20 minutes. We're all about trying to get as educated as we can. And we thank you for coming and presenting to us.
okay, thank you.
Any other public participation comments at this time? With that being said, we will turn our attention to the Minuteman Regional update, and I will hand it over to you guys. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Heidi Driscoll. I'm the still kind of new, I guess, Superintendent of Minuteman Regional, here with Pam Nourse that you all know, and Nikki Andrade, our business manager. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our budget and our values, and then Nikki is going to give you all sorts of details about our budget and how we built our budget this year, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. So as I said, our budget priorities reflect our values. If some of you who I spoke with earlier, you do, seems that you know Minuteman, and you know that we have rigorous academics, we have vocational programs, we have 19 different vocational programs, and we have a full complement of sports, athletics, extracurricular activities, theater, you name it, we have it at Minuteman, full programs. Some Acton student highlights that you should be aware of. We had last year, we had 21 Acton graduates. They went on to 2- and 4-year colleges with many continuing study in their vocational fields. We have one student that went to a post-secondary trade school, that means continued trade study, and one student has an apprenticeship. Some of the colleges are Bethel University, Drexel, UMass Boston, Quinnipiac, Wentworth. Currently, we have 83 students from Acton, and they're in all 19 of Minuteman's program majors. Co-op is cooperative education. That means during the week that they're in their vocational program, if they qualify and have met all the safety and skills standards, they can work in their trade. We have 13 seniors and 2 juniors from Acton who are on co-op, and they are in animal science, carpentry, design and visual communications, early ed, electrical, that's our most popular program, health assisting, multimedia, plumbing, programming and web, and robotics. And we want to give a shout out to our league all-stars, our starting softball pitcher, pitcher and catcher, Alyssa and Caitlin Collins. And the captain of our cheer team is Maren Buckmelter. So please give them a shout out if you see them yourself. I'm going to hand it over to Nikki.
Good evening. So just to get into the details of the Minuteman budget and the Acton preliminary assessment, we have the total assessment coming in at approximately $3.5 million. And without the school building project debt, just shy of about $2.9 million. Overall, our total budget just shy of $32.5 million, which is a 2.99% increase from the prior year. And just to break it down a little bit further, we do have an operating budget increase of about 5.5%, and we'll get into some of the details as to why that is in our future slides. Our operating capital recommendation has decreased significantly. We had an old energy savings lease on our old school building. That has finally been paid off as of last year, so that decrease is because we no longer have the ESCO lease, as they called it, that we have to pay for in the FY26 budget. And our building project debt is consistent, less than a 1% change. We finally closed out our MSBA project in August of 2024, which is wonderful news. We've paid off our temporary ban that we had, and we'll just have debt service payments going forward on the school. And overall, our average increase to our member towns is 2.79% for assessment increase year over year, just shy of 26.5 million. As you'll see in further slides, the assessment per town does vary, and I'll explain a little bit more on that, but it's contributed strongly to the number of students that are attending Minuteman. So a lot of our budget priorities and our budget drivers, number one, of course, is our staff. We had a 3% increase built into our collective bargaining agreement, or our CBA, plus any of the steps and levels that the teachers change. We also were really focused on the supplies and materials, in particular for our vocational programs, the price of metal, of wood, of all of the hands-on learning that we need in the vocational programs have experienced significant inflation over the past few years, and we had concerns about potential tariffs. So that was certainly an area we looked at to ensure that we could continue that hands-on learning for all of our students. Our insurances were something we also kept an eye on. We did have a significant increase in our general liability insurance, as well as our building insurance due to some claims, but we were able to level fund our health insurance. We had a new bid for transportation that came in just above 5%. So we will be working with a new company starting on July 1st, North Suburban Transportation. But one of the biggest reasons for the increase, the 5.5% increase in our operating budget, is because of our increase to our OPEB, or our other post-employment benefits. And there's further details in a future slide, but we had a study committee look at this fund and really assess when the appropriate time to start increasing the contribution was. And because the ESCO lease kind of fell off the books and we had that decrease there, they determined that this was, the appropriate year to not impact towns, fiscally, and try to be fiscally responsible to all of our member towns. So we'll have capital, we have a stabilization fund and other capital needs. And as promised, we will continue to pay our athletic field debt with the facilities rental revolving account that we have, renting our building, renting our athletic fields. So a little bit more info on the capital requests. We are proposing $950,000 to our capital stabilization fund. It's a $100,000 increase from our FY25 contribution. We have had a long-term, a 20-year long-term report completed by a vendor, Onsite Insight. So our finance committee and our capital planning committee will be working together to assess that and create a funding schedule going forward and what that looks like for our school in the future. We also have other capital needs of about $153,000 for the building. A little bit more on OPEB. Our OPEB trust fund balance is about $1.7 million. Our unfunded liability, just over $22 million. So we've known for a while that we've needed a plan. So in 2021, we put together an OPEB study committee. They determined that FY26 was the appropriate year to increase that contribution, which will be our new level, right? So we are increasing our contribution this year by $300,000, and each year after that, we'll just increase it 5%. So, in hopes that we'll really be able to kind of catch up to that unfunded liability. And kind of taking a turn, into enrollment in the school, which, plays an impact on the budget. As we know, we have 669 students. 632 are from our member towns, which is the red line. and 37 are from our non-member towns. And just a little bit more of a breakout by town, in particular for Acton. Your seniors, you have 25 seniors, 18 juniors, 24 sophomores, and 16 freshmen. And we do have information on the incoming freshmen or the applicants. You had a slot allocation of 22 students, and there were 25 applicants. All 25 were sent acceptances. So far, the responses we've gotten back are 21 accepted and 4 declined. So when we think about next year in what that means for Acton, the 4-year rolling average, if you consider the 21 that are accepted, you'd have a pretty consistent 4-year rolling average, which is really based on what the budget is strongly correlated to. So the decrease this year is negative 1.73% in your preliminary assessment, while your 4-year rolling average has increased 7.6%. Our operating budget is strongly correlated to our 4-year rolling average, but our capital budget and calculation does have a little bit different of a calculation, which is why it's not exact. So our capital budget has a 50% breakout between the 4-year rolling average. We also consider a 1%, so in total 9% to each of our member towns. And then the remaining 41% is based on DESE's combined effort yield, which is really the community's ability to pay for education using property values and household incomes. And then we use the percentage of students at Minuteman. So there is, a little bit more into that calculation. So when the numbers don't align perfectly, we just kind of like to remind folks as to why that is. But overall, this is the historical assessment trends for Acton over the past 5 years. You can see in FY22, your 4-year rolling average was, just above 40 students. Now it's more than doubled at 84.75 students. And then just a little bit more information, comparing the numbers year to year from FY25, FY26. We do get that request a lot, not just percentage, but show us the numbers. But overall, again, that 2.99% operating and total capital budget. Our non-assessment revenue, our state aid was based on the governor's budget for Chapter 70 and Chapter 71. Our prior year tuition and capital fees are the revenue that we collect from our out-of-district students. And that has remained consistent this year. We did have a small number of students graduate, 19 students, but we also accepted 19 freshmen. So we actually had the same amount of non-member students attend Minuteman this year, which has made those numbers somewhat consistent. We're continuing to contribute from our excess and deficiency fund, and as promised, we will continue to contribute from our facilities rental revolving funds to offset that athletic field debt. And our assessment components, which are in our budget book and we've explained. And, thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you. We do have some animations from the students. We have a junior, Madison Scaletta, and a junior, Coy McKinley. We had a Winter Wonderland event at Minuteman, which helped raise some scholarship money for the students. So they've made these animations. And a shout out to Zeke Brayman, Broom Dance Emerging Filmmaker Award in our program. So thank you again, and we're happy to answer any of the finance or school-related questions you have.
First, let me say we appreciate you coming and presenting to us. We realize that with 9-member towns, you're going to have to do this at least once in every town. So we appreciate the after-hours nature of finance committee meetings. So thank you for coming. With that, I'll definitely open up the floor for questions. Roland's got his hand first.
Thank you. My son's actually in the class of 28, so he's doing environmental, and he's was on the robotics team that went to Springfield and last weekend to Worcester. So he's been very happy there. What is going on with the HVAC repairs? I find that kind of alarming where it's a relatively new building and now we need HVAC repairs. And then the other one was the wooden bridge, if you can explain those.
So the HVAC repairs, what we have found with our new building is that it opened in fall of 2019. So we closed shortly after, and that building did not run at capacity for the next year and a half. So unfortunately, when your building is not running at capacity, you're not using everything as you should. So there are some items that we are finding now are breaking earlier than they should, and the warranty has run out. So that is one of them. We also had an industrial oven that was wildly expensive. We just made it in with the warranty on that one. But it's an unfortunate, and I can't believe I'm still saying this, but a consequence of shutting the building down during the pandemic. We're actually working with a pilot program with the MSBA, a recommissioning program, so they can come and evaluate all of our systems to see if they're working as they should, because we're in a unique situation. We're one of 2 schools they're working with.
Thank you. I would encourage anybody who is from the committee who has not been to the building to go and ask for a tour at some point, because it is, we went to my son's for the, to meet the teacher and that type of thing. How many steps we took that night, because he goes from one end to the other, and it was over 3,000. And I'm like, this is crazy, but he loves it, he's doing well. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. So I would encourage any of you who would like to come for a tour. This happens after each of our Finance Committee meetings. Please feel free to reach out through your chair or reach out to me directly or to Pam. We'd love to have you in. We need more people talking about what actually goes on in our building firsthand. We'd love to have any or all of you. Thank you.
So I saw Christy first. Sorry.
Background. I have family members in the trades. I strongly believe in them. Pam will tell you since this project came up that I've been a firm supporter of Minuteman. Seeing the 5.5% increase, that 5.6% increase really, knowing that towns' taxes can only go up 2.5%, can you do anything to get in line? Because our schools are cutting horribly. They cut in the last 3 years. They're cutting horribly now for our local schools. People look at Minuteman and wonder why we're in it. Because when we're having to cut school resources for the vast majority of our student population, it's hard to argue, and I know you're a small part of our budget, but it's hard to argue with these big increases that this is worthwhile to keep doing. So anything you can do to please lower those decreases would be very greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Did I hear you say your health care was level funded with the prior year?
Yes, do you want to explain
How
the?
do you do that?
So Minuteman is part of a healthcare trust. It's called Mass Bay Healthcare Trust with 4 other regional schools. We've been very lucky over the past 2 years. The trust has been in a very good financial position due to not many claims. They have been able to, while we budgeted a % increase, they actually voted a 0% increase this year. So we did have a little bit of money this year, so we didn't have to increase it for next year. So that's allowed us to be able to level fund our health insurance this year.
You are lucky. Do you have a final pay update on OPEB? Meaning, at your current price of funding, what year will it be fully funded?
Yeah, right now it's looking to be about 2040. That's doing a 5% estimate and not necessarily counting any big swings in the market. Right now, we haven't seen huge increases in our balance because we've just started building it up. I do anticipate once we start seeing a little bit more of a balance in there that hopefully we'll be able to have some interest or gains and help that along.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
At last year's town meeting, one of the citizens asked a question about the percentage of your students that are going on to college. And we normally take that as a good sign. But what surprised the speaker was that, wait, aren't they supposed to be going to trades? And so I think there's a disconnect or old theory of, let's put it this way, my wife is a nurse and she knows you have to go on to get degrees. You can't anymore just work the way they did in the old days. So can you explain where the higher education becomes a relevant metric for success?
Yes, absolutely. So with our programs, we're not teaching for college only, we're teaching for college and career. So depending on your career pathway, you may need a four-year degree. I can talk about my younger brother who went to a vocational school 30 years ago, which hurts me to say, but 30 years ago, he went to a vocational school, and you would assume, oh, everybody was in plumbing, everybody was. He was in architectural drafting, and he is now quite literally a rocket scientist who had to go to school. And that was 30 years ago. That is not new. That is something that is old, but the perception of kids who can't go to vocational schools still persists. Now, I do believe every student who we take at our school district, we serve well. If maybe your child has seen the career trees, it shows advanced level, professional level, right. Entry level positions, we help students find their pathway. Some might be to four-year colleges because you need it to get to your professional goal. Others might go directly into the workforce. For example, our health, you said you know someone who's a nurse. If we have children who want to go on and be a nurse, yes, you do have to go get a degree, unless you decide to be an LPN, which is a little bit more schooling after. You can get your nurse assisting and health assisting certifications here. Cosmetology, you will have your cosmetology license for free before you leave Minuteman, and you can work immediately. But if you decide to go become an entrepreneur, want to study business management, you might need to go on. But you definitely could be a licensed cosmetologist paying for things as you go on. So out of our 19 programs, I would say most of them at this point in the world do need some sort of further education. Even if I'm a plumber or an electrician, I can go out and work in an entry job, but what I probably want to do is be a master plumber or master electrician. That takes years. That takes journeyman, apprenticeships, years. And that is not traditional college, but that is post-secondary time and experience. So I think sometimes comprehensive schools or people, like you said, people are worried about our schools all across the state. People want to say, hey, let us do the college stuff, you do everything else. But our mission is not just everything else, it's to prepare skilled workers for the 19 trades that we have so they are ready to serve us across Massachusetts. Sorry to get so excited about that, but.
Dave?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Do you generally know of the $25 million operating budget, what percentage is like salary, wages, and benefits?
80?
Yeah, it's about approximately 80%.
80. And so I was curious about you have the 3% CBA. Do you know like the average increase in the fiscal 26 budget per FTE year over year? Is 3% plus a number?
3% plus? No, I don't know that.
Yeah, so I'd say approximately 2/3 of our staff are on the kind of top step and lane. So we have a very veteran, experienced staff that are teaching our students. But there are different, if you're not on the top step, each year you move down a step, so you get an extra bump. I'd say those are between about a 3% and a 5% as well. So depending on where you fall, if you get additional education, you would move across the lanes as well.
So it'd be 3 to 5% total, not in addition to the 3% that's already part of the agreements?
Correct, but as I mentioned, a majority of our staff are kind of at that top level, so.
Yeah, so-
It does kind of wash out a little bit.
And then, how many unions are there?
One,
Is this one, and when does that contract come up, do you know?
next year.
So in a sense, is it like a 3-year contract? It would have been negotiated 3 years ago, maybe pre-inflation?
It was negotiated 3 years ago. I mean,
So
it's a 3-year
22,
contract.
probably around the.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
in the bulk of some pretty big inflation at that point.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so the 3% plus the steps and lanes would
Yeah.
incorporate some inflation, the 3% CBA?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, great, thank you.
Those are my questions.
That's the advantage of going last. A lot of my questions have already been asked. I do have a couple questions though. Just curious, did you pre-purchase anything as a result of the threat of tariffs?
No.
Didn't, I was just curious if that was on the, if there was the ability to move that nimbly.
We wouldn't be able to store it.
Fair enough. A couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, I believe it was, we were told that there was no room left at the building, and this is a two-part question that's going to go in two very different directions here in a second. We were told there was no room left in the building and that they needed to add another wing. That was not welcome news, and that fell on exceedingly
Can
deaf
I,
ears.
2 years ago?
2 years ago. 2 years ago, because I went with Christine and David Martin, and there was a conversation, was it 3 years ago, Pam? Am I off by a year?
You might be, because I'm thinking it was when Ed was still here, right? We were talking about, yeah.
No, it was when
don't think
the
a-
woman that was the
no, school
interim,
was
the
ever-
short-term,
Another wing.
short-term
on the
one?
school.
yes.
Oh, you know what it is, the North,
Oh.
And there was some conversation about potentially seeing about inviting other towns that exited to be able
The
to
east
come back in.
building, yeah. Okay, yep.
That was met with anger by a lot of us. And so my first question is, are you entertaining any such notion at this time? And then the corollary question is, we were told there wouldn't be room. We were already out of room and we would have a hard time placing students from the current districts, but it seems like from your chart, you've been able to add out-of-district placements. Has anything been done to change the financial disadvantage for those of us that stayed in the district versus those who exited the district and yet still have availability, or still seem to have availability to get into this prized school that we all put, Mike Major spent 15 years on this committee shepherding this thing through. And then to have so many towns exit, and then we were told, don't worry, they won't have an opportunity to come back because we're bursting at the seams, we're at max capacity. We're so full, we need to even open this east wing. And now you're still able to let in kids from out of district. Has the state done anything to rectify that injustice?
Well,
Two questions.
Well, I think that's more than two questions, but I'm going to address all of them, my friend. I'm going to
Thank
address
you.
all of them.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So it seems to me, of course, I was not here for this, but something that has come to me from many individuals very passionately since I started is the painful situation that the district was in when it was struggling to be a district and schools left and other districts left and left our 9 towns to pay for this gorgeous new building. We don't have an extra wing. That doesn't exist.
And there's no plans to do anything like that, correct?
Right now, I mean, I would love to, I don't know, but there is no plan.
Wrong.
I can't, I don't know. We don't have a plan at all to make an extra wing.
I'll add something in a moment.
Yeah, but we.
Just don't worry.
No, but I appreciate the passion, because we want to hear that. We want to give every seat that exists, which we do, to every student from our towns who apply. So last year, 100% of the students from our member towns applied, and to keep the assessments the same, we entered the same amount of out-of-district students as the ones who left. So your assessment right now, which did go down a little bit, and a part of our costs that we made sure we maintained was keeping a little bit of those out-of-district students. We did not need to build an extra wing for any of those. And are there towns who would like to come back in? I'm sure, but we can't do, that's not where we are. Where we are right now is building back a district. You mentioned, I want to say we've had 4 superintendents in 4 years. So we really need to take the time to build a secure budget, to have our programs run to full capacity. And we did add vet tech to our building after the project, so that was additional. That did add an additional full program, and we ended up putting that in one of our ancillary buildings, so it didn't impact our space. So that's where we are. We are not actively recruiting. We know there's bad feelings about us not working together to take our share. That's it.
And the corollary of that was that, has there been anything done by the state to rectify the injustice of being able to come in from out of district and not have the capital, the same capital cost? I know there is a capital component for the.
There is a capital fee with tuition.
But it's not equal. It's not equal to what the member towns pay. Has anything been done at the state level to try and
No.
rectify that injustice?
At the state level right now, that is not a part of the conversation. There's lots of other conversations. That's not one of them. But I will tell you, if a district did want to come and rejoin, they would actually have to pay back and pay an equivalent. It would be a very expensive endeavor. They would have to pay their fair share of our district. And I know this because people want in. They do. But that's not where we are.
I just wanted to add one thing on the capital fee. So Minuteman does pay, charge for any out-of-district students a tuition. In addition to that, a capital fee. Minuteman is the only school in the state that wrote to the state and got approved to charge a capital fee, depending on if your school offers more than 5 Chapter 74 programs. So we do, in addition to the standard tuition, charge a per pupil. We take our total school debt and divide it by per pupil, so it's a per pupil cost to that town. But, I just wanted to let you know that we are the only school that has been approved by the state to do so. So we are, doing our share to recoup that from any out-of-district
Very good.
towns.
I'll let Pam speak first because she's been waiting, and then I'll let you have it.
And I do want to mention, though, we do have to get that reapproved every year by the commissioner. So that's not a guarantee.
I just wanted to comment when there are no plans in place to build any extra wings right now. There are no plans in place. When Heidi was like, we'll see what's happening, I'm sure you have been hearing some of the conversation at the state level about vocational schools and admissions. The fact is, there is an incredible shortage across the state of vocational seats to meet the need. So while we right now don't have any plans to, to expand that building envelope and be building new wings, I think when Heidi is saying, well, we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We do know, as we said, that there's a lot of conversation at the state level about what can be done to meet the need for vocational education, because there just is nowhere near enough seats right now.
I can appreciate that.
Oh, I was just curious how much we're charging for the out-of-district students, if you're able to give that number.
So tuition is set by the state. It's approximately, just for tuition for an out-of-district student, approximately $21,000. There are 2 types of capital fees. There's a type A and a type B, and that's depending on if the town you are from is either part of a vocational school or offers at least 5 Chapter 74 programs. So those fees vary from approximately $8,000 for a type A or $6,000 for a type B. In addition to that, if a student requires special education services, there's an additional incremental fee that is also charged to that out-of-district town, which varies each year depending on the expenses that we incur, but it was approximately $8,000 this year.
Just to compare to what Acton is paying per student, we were doing some quick calculation. It looked to be about $43,000 per student per year. Does that sound about right? It's a little bit less than it seemed like the average across all students, if you're looking at like the total budget.
An individual.
Yeah, I think our average per pupil is low 30s. I could do the calculation, but it's,
I'm including the debt, so
Okay,
without,
yeah.
without the debt, it was 35,000.
But we're not including
yeah.
transportation. So if I'm an out-of-district student,
okay.
that school district pays for transportation. We don't pay for that. So there's all these little
Yeah.
nuances that wouldn't be in the straight-up per pupil cost
Yeah.
because they're separated out. So and transportation's huge. That's just one of them. But that's a part of the reason why school districts do not like sending us their students, because if you're transporting one student to Minuteman, that is an exorbitant cost. But
Thank you
it
for
is not a
explaining that.
cost on
This
us.
is really helpful because I'm
problem.
doing my calculations and
Yeah.
making a lot of assumptions that aren't true.
Oh, special ed as well, but even a regular ed student, we don't, they're not on our buses. We don't pay for transportation. So little things like that are different for that small group of students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, you still?
I'm sorry.
So I just have one question. How does the per pupil tuition or rate, whatever, compare to other vocational schools in the state? Do you know? Just curious.
Tuition or?
Just, well, the cost, not the tuition. Like, we came up with this 43 or 35,000. If you just divided, total operating cost divided by number of students is the cost. How does it compare to other vocational high schools?
Yeah, so Minuteman is the highest vocational per pupil cost. We've done some not necessarily assessment, examination of, of why that is. I'm kind of trying to dig into the details to try to kind of pinpoint it. We've come up with three, major kind of topics or reasons that are driving that per pupil cost. Number one that we've talked about, our staffing. We have approximately 2/3 of our staff being the top step-in level. Again, but that gives our students really great hands-on experience. And that is attributable to.
I can add something else
to
about the
the
staff.
higher cost.
When we hire someone to come in as a plumber, a teacher, they can't come in and give up a $150,000 a year job to work for our level 1, step 1. It is very difficult to pay, in this area especially, to bring people in out of trades. So even though when we think of teachers are at top level and step, we're thinking of math and English, which, yes, but vocational recruitment is very different. To get a robotics teacher or an engineer, very, very different. So I just want to make sure we're looking at it beyond, because when we look just at that, again, the straight number and divide it, it's not always equal, but I'll let Nikki continue.
One of the second components is Minuteman does have a very strong number of students that are experiencing special education services. So our freshman class this year was 60% needed additional services. Overall, our school is 45.5% special education services that we'd have to give students. So that does contribute. We do offer a lot of additional support for our students, which contributes a lot to that. The third component is, as we've talked about, we used to be 16 member towns, now we're down to 9. When you look at the geographic location of our school, in particular for transportation, our transportation costs per pupil end up being quite a bit higher because the location and the routes of our member towns aren't as compact as as a school that, is one city or town. We have to come all the way out to Lancaster, Stowe, and do those routes. So when you're comparing to vocational schools, that have all of their towns really close together, we do have a higher per pupil cost for transportation as well.
Okay, so, but wouldn't other vocational high schools have those same, I could be wrong, similar drivers as far as like the population of special ed students?
No.
Or needing to get tradespeople that can't give up?
Yes, you do need to get tradespeople, but to get a tradesperson in Lexington is much more expensive than a tradesperson in, let's say, a city where they're maybe more concentrated.
Okay.
That looks very, very different. The other thing that is different is if you compare our special education population to your 9 through 12 special education population, our percentage is substantially higher than every single one of our sending districts.
But I was saying, what about compared to other
It is higher than.
vocational high schools too?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
I know at one point we had the highest of a public school in the state. I don't know if it's still the highest, but we have one of the highest percentage of students on IEPs.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, I would like to thank you again for coming out tonight. I believe everyone's had a chance to ask their questions. Hopefully, you've seen from tonight that there are many members of this committee who have a long memory of interacting with Minuteman. Looks like Dave has one more, sliding one into the water.
Yeah, maybe just one more. If you've been visiting the other member towns, curious if, how they've responded to just the assessment increases and the budget increases and how they're viewing them generally.
This has been the most questions that we have received to date, I would say. It's been very well received. Our overall budget only went up 2.99%. Most of our assessments maintained this in the same area. The town managers felt prepared for it. So we did not, again, like I said, this is the most questions, but each town is different. So some want us to take more out of district. Some want us to stick with our group. It depends where we are.
I'm sure Pam warned you about us.
She did, she did.
And I will say, since you asked the question, since I've been doing this for a little while, that Acton is probably one of the more budget-sensitive communities, since it's part of my job to represent your interests, that is my voice when it comes to discussing the budget.
So we had your back. We didn't send you in with one set of expectations and not have it come true in the meeting. Again, thank you very much for spending an evening with us and sharing that information. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, and I'd still like to extend, if any of you would like to have further conversation, come visit the building, please reach out. We'd be happy to have you. Thank you.
And I apologize for the budget hearing being late, but we will jump into the budget hearing now. We'll give it a second to let people clear out, because it looks like we've lost absolutely everyone but the town manager. Okay, so that's why I put a statement on the agenda that the estimated time was 7:50. We can't start before then. Fortunately, it's well after 7:50, and we can go ahead and get started on the budget hearing, which is a mandatory component before we get to town meeting.
Just a quick question, just to wrap up that discussion is, and forgive me for not remembering, but like what recourse does a member town have against assessment increases? Is it just?
If we choose, I'm speaking from memory here, so I'd like to put the caveat that I would want to go back and make absolutely sure of this statement. But I believe, just like with our ABRSD, if we were to vote down a budget, it would then go to a district-wide vote of all of the towns. If all of the towns by majority, if the entire district voted a majority to enforce the assessment, we would have no recourse and we would have to pay it.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So the budget hearing is a formality. It does have to happen, but it is also an opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page with the same numbers. So I'm going to read through this, which is a little dry, and then we will open the floor for conversation on the topic afterwards. So this is the start of the fiscal year 2026 budget hearing scheduled for 7:50, delayed because we wanted to take advantage of the presentation from Minuteman. The aggregate proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 is $125,903,496, which is a $2,384,117 or 1.93% increase compared to the fiscal year 25 budget. Broken out into the three main taxing entities, on the municipal side, the town operating, and the town side is more complicated than the others because they count things in different buckets. So there's a bullet for each bucket. On the municipal side, the town operating budget is up $1,743,551 or 4.52%. Enterprise subsidies are up $16,200 or 3%. New capital initiatives not excluded by Proposition 2.5 is down $200,229 or 12.60% down. Excluded debt has decreased by $1,750 or down 0.38%. The total municipal budget is up $1,557,772 or 3.81% year over year. The Acton-Boxborough Regional School District operating increase is $2,326,461 or 3.12%. Excluded debt has decreased by $1,437,867 or 32.24% down. That large one-time decrease in capital expense makes the total assessment to Acton increase by $888,594 or 1.12% over the previous year. As you just saw in this presentation from Minuteman, and I'm happy to see that the calculations that I did matched what was in the, in the presentation. The Minuteman Regional Vocational Technical High School operating budget is decreasing by $54,008 for Acton assessment, or 1.84% less than last year. Acton's share of excluded debt has also decreased by $8,241 or 1.25%, making the total decrease in assessment to Acton, the total assessment to Acton is decreased by $62,240 or 1.73% less than the previous year. The increases in budgets will be funded by multiple forms of taxation, including the standard Proposition 2.5 increase, new growth, small use of untaxed levy capacity, and increase in local receipts. The rest of the increases will be funded with monies already in town accounts, such as use of free cash, a small amount of use of the overlay fund, and the $350,000 use of the OPEB trust. This is a continuation of taxing to the maximum allowed under Proposition 2.5. I did that twice. New growth was reviewed during budget workshops to be an acceptable estimate for the coming year. We all settled on approximately 0.5%. The bottom line projected increase, the average single-family tax bill for next year is $319, making the average single-family tax bill $15,237. Those are the numbers that have to be read and reported as part of the budget hearing. I will now take conversation on this topic. Are there any comments or questions regarding the budget hearing? Or has everyone been reading the ALG spreadsheet so much this is exactly what they expected to see? Greg, you look like you're forming a question.
I wasn't.
Nope, sorry.
I
Corinne.
am. I'm always crunching numbers at home, so I'm sure I've done this myself, but I can't remember. What would be the increase in the school budget if they weren't retiring debt? Like, the retirement of debt is obscuring the actual increase.
3.12%.
That's
is
the operating?
As the operating increase to
Okay.
Acton for next year, 3.12.
Okay, and then the overall is 1.12 or something.
Let me make sure I don't misspeak because I've got it right in front of me. 1.12, correct. So 3.12 increase in operating because so much debt has retired. The
Right.
overall increase, the actual increase that we're paying is only 1.12%.
But do we know what I'm thinking about the total school budget, not just the Acton piece, because.
The Acton piece is what we care
I know,
about.
I
It's
know, I know.
3.12%. I would have to dig up their specific
I can go look.
budget to get it, but our component is 3.12. Okay, Gang, I saw you first, sorry.
Just, do we have a summary of what changes have been made since the budget workshop?
Summary of changes since budget workshop. I'm going to cheat here and look at the summary tab of the ALG spreadsheet. We met in January for the budgets, for the budget workshops. The ABRSD assessment went up $100,000 or so since the budget workshop. The town operating budget was reduced by $130,000, but because of the health insurance increase, that was actually a cut of $290,000 from the budget that was originally presented to us. The capital request was reduced by $175,000 since the budget meetings. The amount of money that we were using in free cash was reduced as well, probably because other reductions brought the entire cost down, and we were able to pull that change from the use of reserves or use of free cash. And then they did decide to use $130,000 in excess levy capacity when there was a change in the state aid expectation on the school side. So those are the changes that are tracked in the ALG spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Steve.
Well, I may be off topic since I'm not going to talk about next year's budget. But since we don't seem to have any questions or comments.
It's a budget hearing, we're talking about the budget.
Can we move on to FY '27 through FY '30?
Absolutely.
As I think about what happened 2 weeks ago, and you mentioned the monkey wrench that the school committee threw in with their 6% assumption of growth in our assessments. If you then take about a 4.5% increase in the town over the same period of time, which is about where they are on their operating budget this year, I come up with a cumulative amount of deficit for the next 4 years of about $28 million. Now, it's said that you can close a $2 million gap in any budget year. And I've been a veteran of many such sessions. However, most of that savings always comes from deferring hiring or deferring capital.
Or increasing use of free cash.
Yeah. But even if you assume you can get $2 million out of every budget 4 years, that's only $8 million. And our deficits are way, way, way over that. So my concern as we come up to this town meeting, see, I'm bringing it back to this town meeting, is unless there is an ALG plan or something published so that the voters know what to expect in these future 4 years. They're not fully informed about the fiscal situation. And they're going to be voting on a, 38, 35, 40 million. Who knows the size of the DPW building. And by town bylaw, long-range fiscal plans are our responsibility. Not necessarily theirs, but ours. And I know some people have said, oh, these forecasts never come true. We don't need to worry about them. We don't even need to show them. I think we'd be derelict in our duty if we don't get this into the ALG plan. And if they won't put it in the ALG plan, then I will fall back on chapter B, whatever, 2 of the town bylaw, and we should publish our own plan.
To that end, Mr. Noon, we're probably going to have to publish our own plan anyway, because we are not, as a body, we are not recommending the DPW, which even though it does not show up in FY26, it does show up in the ALG plan for FY27 and on. So given that we do not recommend that, we're probably already going to have our own finance committee view of it. But back to but I do not want to go down the DPW rat hole tonight. I do want to go back to what you said about 4.5% on the town side. Obviously, each entity is welcome to come back and adjust what they're looking for. But the marker that was laid down at the last ALG meeting by the school committee was that they do not see a path to living within the confines of Prop 2.5. Furthermore, this year, as a committee, we repeatedly asked the municipal side to bring their budget down to 3%. As you see from the numbers that were just read, the school district came close at 3.1. And let me get back to this so that I've got the right thing in front of me. And the town did do multiple rounds of cuts, which we are grateful for, and they did get down to 3.81 total year over year. So, but they've also said, and the town manager is here, I do not want to put words in his mouth, he's welcome to come up and say if I'm misrepresenting what was said. It is my understanding that there is no more room to be cut, or they would have done so to try and get to the 3% guidance that we gave at the beginning of the year. So they're saying as well that at this time they cannot live within the 3% limit that we've asked for. So if both the largest entities, the two big dog entities, are saying they can't possibly live within a 3% increase for the foreseeable future, that does mean, by very definition, that we will be facing another operating override, definitely within the next 3 years, most likely within the next 2. Now, the school side has said they're going to hire a consultant, they're going to do their work, they're going to come back in early December with recommendations, but at this time that they requested that we put a 6.33 number in as a placeholder. I've heard the argument that putting that number in is not a good idea because that gives them no incentive to put their feet to the fire because it looks like it's something we're just going to roll with. I would argue that I don't think anyone has ever accused the current finance committee of just rolling with the budget of any kind. But to your point, one of the things that I will have to say in the finance committee report that's in the warrant is that we do not see the sustainable path that lives within Prop 2.5 that we'd asked for when we did last year's override. Does that address your concern?
Well, I would go so far as to say that I think fiscal '27, we can probably get through. We have the untaxed levy capacity,
1.21 million?
and that'll probably get us within that magic $2 million range that we can figure out a way to balance the ALG plan. However, I don't think we can do that in fiscal '28. So as for timing of debt exclusion, operating overrides, it means we won't have one last year, we'll have one this year, and we'll have one next year. Because while we can get through '27, we will need to have the vote for fiscal '28 during fiscal '27. I believe Gang did some fairly significant research on override passage or not, and I think the odds of getting three ballot questions that raise taxes in a row are very, very low. So my concern is that, again, I'll bring this back to current topics. If we commit to 2.4, 2.5 debt service for the next 30 years for a DPW building, that's, I don't know, 10 teachers, 5 policemen. I mean, we're going to pay for that building with headcount, because there isn't much besides capital and headcount and other compensation that goes into these budget increases.
Just to be absolutely fair, so I can't be accused of having my thumb on the scale. You said 2.4, 2.5. The current number that's being held in the ALG spreadsheet is 2.3. But just trying to be as accurate as I can. Greg.
I think this is related both to the immediate budget that we're going to be communicating to the town this year and the communication of the challenges that we're going to face over the long term. On Monday, the select board decided they're not mailing the town warrant to every household in town. They're going to be sending a postcard with a QR code where people can, no, that didn't pass? Oh, good. Well, then maybe there will be a way to communicate the complexity of the issues. I was concerned that we have a lot of information, but if people are still going to be getting the gory details, then we're not going to surprise voters with, wait a second, where did that one come from?
To that end, last year, in advance of the override, I believe Christine Russell went and gave a couple of minute speech, recorded speech at ActonTV. Should we do something along those lines with our town warrant message this year?
Yes, you should, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we should.
I think I've been voluntold, so I will try and get that message written in advance of the April 15th deadline, and so that we can also get it disseminated. Mr. Horton.
Since I had the esteemed pleasure of being chair when COVID hit, I think I had to hang around until July doing it. That's what I did, is I ended up going to ActonTV and recording what I was going to say at town meeting.
Okay.
So I think we should continue to do that.
Okay.
And get our message out there. And the sooner we can do that, I feel the better, so they can get that playing on loop.
Well,
So that.
let's not beat them over the head with it. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, not, so they can play it often enough that the citizens can tune in and watch it. Or see it on YouTube or what have you, right?
Very good.
And it's just, we need to get that message out there as soon as we can.
Very good. Dr. Chan.
So just a comment that I know that the town tries so hard to cut down this, but it's still 3.81%. The cost drivers are still there for the operating override. To the taxpayers, many of them cannot tell the difference between an operating override and a tax inclusion override. To them, it's just a tax increase. So I suggest that we should do our best to space out these overrides because it's looking very likely that we need an operating override in the next 2 or 3 years. We need to do our best to space them out. Otherwise, it gets to a fatigue, override fatigue. And then, no matter what you put out, the taxpayers may vote this down. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Okay, this is a hearing, which means I think we have to vote to close the hearing.
Second.
Greg moved, Steve seconded. There's nobody online, so we can do this by voice vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. And are there any abstentions? The hearing is now closed. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to go through the warrant articles and where we are comfortable to go ahead and make a recommendation or a not recommended or a no recommendation. Please remember that all three options are on the table for each item. I've got the updated warrant draft that the town manager sent along last night. Thank you very much for sending it. You must have anticipated that we were going to need it, so appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Thank you. John Mangiarotti, Town Manager. Nice to see you all. The warrant is, it's pretty far along. I think it's furthest along it's been at this point, at least since I've been here. But there are a few final details that are still being ironed out. There have been 5 or 6 articles added since the last time you looked at this. So they're mostly at the end, so it's easy to find. There's a placeholder in Article 12, which is currently blank, and is going to stay that way unless the board decides to add one. Otherwise, it'll go all the way just as a blank. I just didn't want to change the numbers.
We appreciate that, actually. Thank you very much.
And the number 36 is something that was added. But I'll be here to answer and address any questions about the articles. I can give an overview in great detail or in minor detail on any of these articles, if that's helpful.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes?
Just to be clear, is someone writing down our recommendations for each article?
Okay.
Yes, they will be in the notes.
Okay.
And some of us have even drafted what we plan to say.
We don't need to go down that route, but thank you. Okay, let me get to the right spot here. That's not it. Okay. Oh. Okay. First one is choosing all necessary town officers and setting the prices. I believe I was assigned this one. This is totally non-controversial. Do we have a recommendation? I hear a move to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Anyone want to talk about this, or are we good to pay the people the exact same amount that we've been paying them for the last God knows how many decades? Good. We are good to go. All those in favor of a recommendation of recommending Article 1, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? We're done with 1. 2. Receive and accept reports. Again, this is an important thing that we do. I move that we recommend Article 2.
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Steve. Does it have to do with Article 2? Wait until you get to the microphone, introduce yourself.
Sorry, yes, Chair, if I just, 1 second. So it's occurred to me that we get the annual report the day of town meeting. And so none of us had seen it. And I urge people not to recommend something they haven't seen. It's a 100-page book. We get like 10 minutes to look at it, and it's occurred to me some of the stuff in there is pretty controversial. And I haven't said anything before, but I'm going to take a look at that this time, and I may say something in particular about the library. There are folks that would like to create a history of official documents that appear to be a certain way. And again, this leads to an issue if the town is doing something unlawful. I listened to the town attorney talk about what she recommended about respecting the Citizens Library trustees and the deed that called for the town to respect the original purposes of the Constitution of the West Acton Citizens Library Association, and what the town puts into the annual report, which is reviewed by nobody, except I think Ann Chang and a couple of people, not the public. And then we go to town meeting and vote on it as if there's nothing in there. So I want to be really careful, again, if we don't want to do things that end up causing matters that can be really expensive. Thank you. And I hope you defer until we've had a chance to look at the annual report. Again, voting on something, to recommend something you haven't seen, I think is a dangerous practice. Thank you.
The motion on the table is to recommend this article. Is there any other conversation on this topic? All those in favor of recommending Article 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstaining? Any abstentions? Moving on to Article 3, budget transfer.
I would recommend we don't do anything right now because it's possible there could be a budget transfer by town meeting.
Okay, we will hold off. Thank you. Appropriations for the municipal operating budget. To wit, the reason why we had the hearing tonight, I would also like to remind people that what's written in this article is not what we're actually voting on at town meeting. We are voting on what is read at town meeting. So we'd like to keep an eye and make sure that there is not a surprise or a change from what was just read out as the aspects of the ALG agreement.
Given that the number in the draft warrant agrees with the current ALG plan, I move we recommend Article 4.
Second.
Any,
Does this mean we're, because I wasn't at the last meeting when you guys voted on the budget. Does this mean that we're approving the budget or like?
so last meeting, we were going around the room trying to see if we were going to go back to ALG and ask for one more reduction. We got to 5 members, 5 votes, who said not to pursue any further cuts, which was a de facto acceptance of the budget. That said, we're supposed to go through the process of having a budget hearing before we accept any budget. So that's why we did the budget hearing tonight. And that happens to coincide just under the radar, just under the wire with regard for timing to go through the recommendations for the different articles. So yes, this is the formal recommendation of the Finance Committee for the municipal budget as it is currently written up in the ALG plan.
Okay.
Would you like to discuss it?
Well, I will say a couple things. One, I'm not a fan of unanimous votes.
We do
Okay.
not have to be unanimous.
Good, because I feel like it
almost never
doesn't, I feel like it doesn't serve the public when everybody agrees. I think, you need to have, like I said, I think this board does have these healthy, open discussions and tension, and I think that's needed between all boards. But I wouldn't vote no just for the sake of voting no. My problems or concerns with the town budget, and frankly, it'd be with the schools too, is that with the town in particular, like to add FTEs the year after an override, and at least for the firefighter, I'm not suggesting that the firefighter doesn't know how to staff her department, but she's already got vacancies, and I don't think it makes sense to add positions when there's already several vacancies, because you're just adding to the base. And I would rather see, I don't know how long the vacancies have been vacant, if that's like an ongoing thing, or if it was just a blip. I don't know.
That, I'm going to channel my inner Scott here, because that was the gist of the conversation that we wrestled with 2 weeks ago. But in terms of the FTE, there was a proposal before this last round of 6 new FTEs. The town manager and the select board cut 3 of those out to bring it down to their 3.8 percentage points. The 3 remaining ones that we took a look at, one is actually revenue generating, which made it one of those odd situations where, you know, if it pays for itself, what's the issue? And Scott, who's not here tonight, but I think made the point that I concurred with, that probably 2 of these positions are going to continue to go unfilled, and therefore we're going to see this money turned back. And therefore fighting over that issue did not seem to be the best, most prudent battle that we could fight. So no, we haven't voted on this as a committee yet, but the conversation was that's how we got to where we got to.
Okay, so if the positions go unfilled, would the money, because we vote on a bottom line budget, right?
Correct.
Would the money definitely go back to free cash, or
No.
could it be spent on other stuff? And again, now we've just raised our base before we've actually been able to fill those positions.
What you've just said is accurate. It is a
That's what
bottom line
concerns me.
budget. It is, once it is approved, if there is a need elsewhere, the monies can be spent because they have been appropriated.
Right. I'm
And
also.
you're also right, it does change the baseline. That's true.
Because then when they want to, if they actually fill those vacancies and now they want to add that firefighter they need, now we've got to raise the base again. I'm also concerned about moving forward with the electrification of Town Hall, because it doesn't seem to make sense from a cost standpoint that we're retrofitting an antique building with a system that, runs on more expensive energy than natural gas. And in the big plan for the electrification of all the town facilities, that system at the time was rated a priority 3. So it's like in the middle. I think they had priorities 1 through 5. That was a 3. So I'm not sure why we're moving forward with that right now. So those were my main concerns.
If I'm reading this properly, I thought that the electrification was not in Article 3. It's in Article 6.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I'm
So-
just thinking of the town budget. Sorry. I'm thinking of the whole thing.
So I'm definitely sympathetic of the argument that we asked them to come in at 3% operating and they're coming in at 4.5. So I'm definitely sympathetic to that argument, and that's also why I will be voting no for this budget. But my expectation is when we take this recommendation vote tonight, it is my expectation, not my goal, but it is my expectation that it will get a majority opinion for a recommendation. So, I believe I'm the one that brought it up. I believe I'm the one that moved to recommend it, even though I'll be voting against it, which is an interesting position I have just found myself in. But, yes, Christie. But I believe I've done that before, actually.
I would like to raise a point for anyone who's listening in the public. The budget numbers we have gotten to now have been based on months of negotiation through the Acton Leadership Group process. So we've been accused of rubber stamping the budget. That is very much not the case. We've been negotiating it for a long time. So if you're here listening to it now saying, oh, they're not arguing about things, it's because we've done that over months and months and months. So if you're just tuning in now, this is not the start of a process of us looking at it or an incomplete end. This is something we've been working on for a long time. I would also like internally to change the language about appreciating that they've come down. They came in with a number. Well, if someone comes in with something that is way too high and backs off to too high, that's still too high. They shouldn't get credit for coming in for something that is completely unaffordable and backing it off to unaffordable. I'm not saying that's the case here, but that sort of logic just makes me very angry.
Well, my first cut on the town budget was that 97% of it came from 3 items, and they were salaries, Middlesex, and healthcare. They cut some of the salary increases. Health insurance went the other way. So there's still very little to play with here. Yeah, it's a big budget, it's got a lot of money in it. But when you come right down to it, if you can't cut Middlesex and you can't cut health insurance, and they've made their cuts to what they believe is the right amount in terms of salaries, there's nothing left to cut. Could they have cut more in salaries? Maybe. Personally, I didn't see the point in fighting that battle along with all the other battles we'll be fighting. So
Understood.
You may have moved to recommend. I moved to second, so I'm voting in favor.
The part of the reason why, well, the reason why I'm bringing it up, making the motion to recommend it is, as the ALG member who is here tonight, is my responsibility to make that happen. That said, I am sticking to what I said earlier about doing everything in our power to try and stay within Prop 2.5. And the reason why I believe we should do everything in our power to stay within Prop 2.5 is if you do it proactively, you have a greater ability to address where the cuts come from. If you go for an override and bank on it and fail, then it becomes an emergency set of cuts rather than a planned set of cuts, which is why I always try and advocate for staying within the confines of Prop 2.5. So that said, we do have motion on the table. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
And any abstentions?
No, 2.
2. 2 noes. And any abstentions? No. Very good. Article 5, appropriation for town capital equipment and projects. I do have a question on this one. No, maybe I don't.
In the source column, the first 3 items, public safety facility improvements, Acton Memorial Library interior improvements, and town facility roof replacements, all show sale proceeds. What are we selling?
I believe
Put your microphone on.
I believe what they are talking about is the civil defense building down on River? No? That's old news?
Okay, we got John
John is
coming up.
coming up.
He stayed for a reason.
They don't stay, though. Thank you. The sale proceeds are from the sale of the 362 Main Street property, which is where Kennedy Landscaping used to be.
Okay.
And it's under construction right now. Acton Housing Authority is building 41 units there. They paid $1 million for that site. And that's the funding that we're reinvesting in capital in this article.
Okay.
I would like to discuss some of these line items individually. I don't know whose article this is. I'm not prepared to vote on all of them in the same way.
Okay. Do you want to hold off on this? Should we hold off on this one until next meeting?
I'm happy to do it now. Your call.
Okay. This is my article, isn't it? Do you have the list from last week?
I do.
I think this is mine. So you'd like to handle this as a consent calendar. Okay. Would anyone like to place a hold on A1?
Just excuse me, Article 5
Yes,
is you, Jason Cole.
that's what I thought. Would anyone like to place a hold on A1? A2,
Hold.
A3, B, C, D, E, F, G, H,
I. Sorry. Hold. For I, not you.
H is not held. Would anyone care to hold I?
Hold.
Would anyone care to hold J or K? Okay, so let's vote on the rest of them. Well, let's not, because if A1, A2, and A3 are to be taken as a block, because that's where the sale proceeds come from, and we should discuss that first. Okay. Do you have questions on A2, or do you have a comment that you would like to make?
The items that I have chosen to hold are the items that I see as being not necessary in this current time. I skipped over the fireworks. It's coming up on the 250th anniversary of our country. While not necessary, I'm not going to vote against that one. Child care subsidy was supposed to be a federal program fully funded by ARPA, and now it's slipping into our budget overall. The library, yes, I sit in there. It would be great to have new stuff, but not right now.
Also, I believe, isn't there, I got stopped by somebody at True West asking me to take a survey on what changes I'd like to see at Acton Memorial Library, and that they were planning a major renovation in the next couple of years. I guess that's a question that I would like to direct to you, Mr. Manager. Why are we doing interior improvements now if we're also planning on potentially having a much larger project in the near future?
Thank you for the question. I think the library is our most heavily used facility that we have in town. The bathrooms on the first floor might be the most frequently used bathrooms in town. And they are original to the renovation, the big addition that happened in the 90s. So they need to be replaced. And the carpets, same story. They were put in there when the building was renovated, and they get heavily used. In terms of what else is being envisioned for the future of the library, I think that's an ongoing process that is going to include other things, but these are needs that need to be addressed in either scenario. The bathroom in particular, the carpets certainly could wait to see what the interior design folks think, but either way, they need to be replaced, and this is funding to address that effort.
Yeah, I attended the library presentation on their so-called future changes. The reason why I say so-called is because they were very clear that this is not going to involve moving any walls or changing the footprint. What they are looking at is how they are using the space and which activities seem to fit in which rooms. And having participated in that meeting, I thought it was A, well-run, but B, it was not on a scale that had me thinking, wow, how are they going to pay for this one? This was more of, we have a lot of young families who are using some of the ground floors, and is it best to think about which activities we put in which rooms?
Is it your expectation that if we do these changes now, they will have been duplicative in the future, would have been replaced yet again, therefore we do not get the full value out of the changes at this time?
No, I believe that this is what I would call maintenance. How do I say this? My wife went into the bathroom because I knew that was one of the issues. She came back and reported, yeah, it needs, I did not personally inspect, but I believe that her analysis is accurate.
Steve? Your mic's on. Roland?
I will agree with that opinion because I was in the library on Saturday, I had to use the bathroom. He needs help. He needs lots of help. But on the carpets, Stanley steamer. Don't need to be replaced right now. Clean them.
Okay. Christie?
Again, in a time of emergency, I use those bathrooms often. They're fine. They're not luxurious, not that they would become luxurious, but we have better uses for $350,000.
Any comments from the right-hand side of the table?
I also use it a lot, and it's fine to me. It's
Okay.
fine. Just clean it. It's pretty clean already. So.
Okay.
My 3-year-old is afraid of the bathroom, but it's not just the Acton Library, so.
Okay. Okay, so it's not a particular monster. Okay. Okay, so let's take A2. Would anyone like to make a recommendation? Make a motion, sorry. Go ahead.
Move to not recommend A2.
Anyone care to second it? Dave will second it. Okay. The motion on the table is to not recommend A2. All those in favor of not recommending, actually, we're going to do this by a show of hands so that it's easier for Mary Ann. All those in favor of not recommending A2, please raise your hand. 4. Okay. All those opposed to not recommending, please raise your hand. 3 and 3. 3 and no vote yet from Allison. Allison, would you care to abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, so that is 4, 3, 1.
4, not to recommend,
3, 2,
and then was there a 2 abstain?
there was 1 to abstain.
So 4 plus 3 plus 1 is 8.
And Gang's not a voting member. Okay, so that's a not recommended. That carries. 4, 3, 1. Yeah, that carries. Okay. Would you care to comment as well on the other hold, which is I?
Childcare subsidy started with ARPA funding. We were told at the time this would be temporary, as long as there was federal funding for it. It is now being moved into the budget. Every time I have talked about cutting the budget, I am asked, what services would you cut? This is an opportunity in which a service is becoming completely codified into our budget. Rather than have to argue later on when it is a legacy service, I would like to cut it now, not allow it to become part of the budget. If we can, in fact, other sources can be found, I don't argue against it being a nice thing to have, but given what we're facing down the line, I do not agree that this should be added to our budget in perpetuity.
Is it your position that childcare is not, private care, childcare for a specific subset of individuals is not a core function of government?
In a time of difficult budgeting, I do not think it is a time to add a legacy program to it, so what will become a legacy program. I think it's a really nice thing to have, and I know that there are people out there for whom this is vital. I do not think now is the time to take it on when we're facing so many difficulties with people just paying their tax bills, let alone where it's going.
I was trying to serve up a softball.
I'll hit it, I won't take it.
I'll hit it. Don't take it, don't take it. Okay. I saw Roland's hands first, and then I'll come back to you.
So if you look at it, it says child care and transfer stations. I'm sure we're not transferring the child care to the transfer station.
That would be
what's
very
the-
interesting.
So what's the breakdown? I'm sure the town manager could answer that question for us this evening.
Sir, we look to you.
Oh, thank you. And just to the comment that I wanted to make it clear that this is proposed as a capital item, and not part of the budget for the very reason stated, that we wanted to put more transparency to it and allow the community to decide on it now, and whether or not so it's not part of the budget, it's called out specifically for the people to decide. To the specific mix of how the funding would be used, we're thinking 10,000 for transfer station subsidy, but that and then the rest would be for childcare, but it would be something that we would wait to see how it works. The town meeting, as you recall, a couple of years ago, asked us to work on a transfer station subsidy, which was part of the reason for bringing this forward. And as mentioned, there have been several different versions of childcare subsidies through several different grant programs, both state and federal, over the last few years. And this one is proposing to do it locally.
What was the rationale behind putting two such disparate topics under the same subheading?
Well, capital projects are, they're both subsidies. They're both to support families in need in this community, and that's why they're together. We could take them apart if you'd like, but
Roland,
I think they should be taken.
do you think they should be separated?
Yeah, because it's not transparent.
It
I'm not in
is
favor of the
it is-
childcare, but I'm in favor of taking care of our transfer station.
To
When I
be,
had my kid, I had to pay for childcare.
to be clear, it is described in the description of letter I, that one's for 10,000, the other's for 30,000, but by that same token, again, once it's voted, it can be reassigned after the fact. I do think they should be split out. Does anyone else think that it should be split out?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have to vote or request to have it be split out, or do we just ask them to split it out? Mary Ann?
I believe you do not have to vote
To ask them to split it out?
And as what Town Manager John Mangiarotti had mentioned, is that we could just make childcare one and then transfer our station the next.
Yeah, I and M or L.
well, in terms of just editing the document, that's possible, but the board did put this on the warrant and has already recommended it in its current form, so I would want to check with them first before we changed it. And certainly, anyone can make an amendment at town meeting, or
Okay.
I could also bring it to the board if the finance committee is interested, and see if there's any interest in them changing it now and reconsidering their recommendation.
I would recommend that we defer voting on I this evening, and that we defer on I this evening and ask the select board to please split this into two separate topics that we can, two separate subsections that we can go back at our next meeting and vote on. Is everyone comfortable with that for tonight's view? Thank you, I'm good. I appreciate it, Tara, but no. Okay, so are you as the person who held I, are you comfortable with that course of events? Okay, so we're going to defer on I. What? Thank you.
Do you
Okay.
want a motion on everything else?
So now we're going to take the rest of Article 5, with the exception of A2 and I. Going to give the second to Roland on that one. Any other conversation? Any other conversation on any of the other capital items here? Seeing no open microphone that I think is active, I will move to a vote. All those in favor of recommending Article 4, with the exceptions of subsections A2 and I, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And any abstentions? Thank you. We're good there. I swear I'm going to get healthy one of these weeks. Okay, thank you, Allison. Article 6. First of all, does anyone want to take 6 as a consent article as well?
I would like to place a hold on one item,
Which one do you want to place a hold on?
B.
B.
I'd like to place a hold on A.
Very good. I got a hold on A, I got a hold on B. Anyone hold on C, D, E, or F? Very good. Let's take it in order as it comes on the screen. So I'm going to turn to you first, Ms. Hogseth. You placed a hold on subsection A.
Right, so this is what I brought up earlier, was the Town Hall HVAC replacement and electrification project for $3.75 million. About $100,000 of the annual debt service would come out of the general fund, right? And $125,000 would come from other revenue sources. Mike, like I said, my stated concern before is that we're moving forward with a project that will be more expensive in the long run than natural gas would be. I actually asked for a cost analysis on that. We saw one for the DPW building, but we did not see one for this project. It's a negative ROI, according to the report from, was it Weston Sampson? I always want to call him Smith & Wesson, but I know. Weston Sampson, so their cost analysis for the DPW building had negative ROIs for geothermal, and I don't see how it could be better, like I said, retrofitting into an old building. And also the study that was done a couple of years ago did not suggest that the replacement of our current HVAC system was a high priority. So I would like to see more analysis about the life cycle costs of doing this, and I'm questioning the necessity of doing it now.
Mr. Manager, would 2 weeks be sufficient time for you to come back with a life cycle analysis specifically for the electrification and HVAC replacement?
Absolutely, yeah. We're presenting this update to the board on 4/7, and I think you have a meeting 4/8. Is that right? So the timing works out perfectly that we'd have an update on the project because with all the things you said, the life cycle cost, the options available to move forward. The reality is that the HVAC system is not functioning and it needs to be replaced, and we don't have necessarily the option to replace it with natural gas. Our town bylaws require that we do it electric, so.
We do allow for exceptions, do we not?
Yeah, there are exceptions to that, and we can look at that, but the policy direction that we've been given is to electrify while we're replacing the HVAC as the opportunity to do it, rather than waiting another 30 years to do it. So that's the direction we've been given to date. The numbers that we have in here are based on the work that's been done. We do have a conceptual design that we've received since this article was drafted, so we'll have more information to present that Monday. And I mentioned we'll publish it in the packet ahead of Monday, so.
Great. I would like to, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I would like to definitely give the guidance that we would like as clear an ROI layout for this as possible. Does that meet your requirements? And are you comfortable holding this till our next meeting?
Yes,
thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to this, or is everyone else comfortable with waiting to see the results in 2 weeks? Very good. We also had a hold on B.
Not building more sidewalks seems like a pretty easy one to skip for right now, again, when we're in difficulty with budgets. Personally, would rather see this go into stormwater program because with the big environmental hits we're having, where we have larger rains, that's where we're going to run into infrastructure problems. With towns, we have culverts that have been in extreme difficulty for a long time, et cetera. I like sidewalks, I walk a lot. If you're gonna ask me how to allocate my limited budget, that's not where I'm going to put them. So I do not recommend personally B.
Mr. Manager, Section B here speaks to both sidewalk construction and complete streets. Do you have any insight as to what percentage of this would go towards something like water culverts, et cetera? Or is this strictly for sidewalks and for widening for bike lanes, et cetera?
Thank you. Yeah, the question is helpful to clarify. So when we do a complete street project or a sidewalk project, there's extensive drainage work that is completed as part of it. Because anytime we're tearing up a road, we want to get it up to where it should be. And so like when we did Main Street, this was a complete streets intersection project. But while we did it, we completely did the drainage system over. And so now it drains properly, hopefully. And so the stormwater needs are being addressed. There's not likely to be major culvert replacements in these, in item B, but the other components of the drainage system would be repaired in anything that we touch.
Do you have a concept of how many new feet, quarter miles of sidewalk would be addressed with this round?
I do, but it's not in the warrant, which is a good observation, and maybe we should put a little bit more detail under item B for that. Because it's in the capital plan, we just didn't put it in here, so thank you for that. And I can get back to you on that.
Can we hold off until we hear how many feet? So we'll defer that, we're going to defer this entire article until next.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question on F.
Okay.
Equalization tank for the wastewater treatment plant. I understand it's general fund debt, John, but is the debt service paid out of sewer users or out of general fund town funds?
This item F is something that we added not that long ago. It is to be paid within the sewer enterprise. It's not going to be general fund borrowing.
Okay, that's fine.
And it's to supplement other funding that we have to do the project that's needed for our DEP compliance.
Yeah, I understand when we put out debt, it has to be town debt because the sewer enterprise fund can't put out debt on its own, but just want to be clear that that probably should be in the warrant too.
Okay. So we're going to defer Article 6 this week and handle it at our next meeting. Article 7, Mr. Jarbo.
So I've spent the last 2 weeks re-listening to a lot of ActonTV footage to make sure that I captured our consensus, because I think this is one of the few articles where we actually do agree. So I've drafted up something here which, because of the open meeting law, I've decided to wait to share it with you tonight, but I can email it now that this is a public meeting. But the gist of what I will share is about 340 words long. And that was a specific target in case this committee wants to use this statement as either a letter to the editor, which has a 350-word limit.
See what you did there.
Yeah. It can also be used on ActonTV. It's about a 3-minute presentation, which, based on a lot of data, is about the right length. But it basically says the Finance Committee, after extensive deliberation, does not recommend Article 7, which proposes borrowing for the construction of a new public works facility at 14 Forest Road. This recommendation stems from a comprehensive evaluation of the project's financial implications, economic uncertainties, operational necessities, and strategic alignment, all of which have been central to our discussions. Our primary concern revolves around the financial impact on Acton's budget and taxpayers. The initial design, estimated at $46.96 million, was deemed excessive, leading to a reduced scope. However, even with these reductions, the project's cost remains a significant financial burden. Our February 25th, 2025 meeting specifically addressed budgetary allocations and strategies to mitigate these burdens, emphasizing the need to balance this project with other municipal priorities. Furthermore, we are deeply concerned about the economic uncertainties, particularly the volatile federal landscape and fluctuating steel prices. President Trump's recent tariff on imported steel and aluminum, effective March 12, 2025, is expected to inflate material costs, mirroring the price spikes seen in 2018. Our March 11, 2025 meeting highlighted the risks of making substantial financial decisions in such an unpredictable environment. Moving down. We have also questioned the operational necessities and strategic alignment of the proposed facility. We acknowledge the importance of modernizing the DPW building. Our February 12, 2025 meeting raised questions about the anticipated benefits, including improved maintenance and resource management. Similarly, our September 24, 2024 meeting focused on the project's alignment with Acton's long-term plans, including sustainability and community development goals. In light of these financial and economic concerns, as well as questions regarding operational necessity and strategic alignment, the Finance Committee believes that proceeding with Article 7 at this time and at the current scope is not in the best interest of Acton residents. We remain open to future evaluations of a scaled-back project, ensuring that any new DPW facility reflects fiscal responsibility and enhances public services. We encourage voters to carefully consider these factors before the town election on April 29, 2025, and the town meeting on May 5 to 6, 2025.
Kristen.
I know you've hit the perfect word limit, but could you please address the sunk cost fallacy? I've heard it from,
So we don't need to do that per se in what he addresses tonight, because we can have that be part of our wider word count that does not have to adjust to the 350 count.
okay, I would just, it's an argument we have heard repeatedly that town meeting, first of all, town meeting approved design services for what was presented at the time is a $32 million project, which is not what we were brought forward, and having to spend this much money to make it make sense that we spent all that design money is just.
I hear you. I do have a question. Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
So and I'm very aware of the concerns that the Finance Committee has raised, and I think that it sounds like they may have been captured pretty well. But I would encourage the Finance Committee to consider the number. You just referenced the number, 32 million, that town meeting voters thought the project should be. What if it is 32 million? We haven't gotten the number yet, I guess is my point. I think the earlier estimates certainly were more than you would like them to be. They were more than we'd like them to be. We're getting the cost estimate reconciled Thursday, which is today's Tuesday. So we have a number that will be here before your next meeting. So I'd encourage you to consider it before you make a decision.
We're willing to wait. I do have a question, which I hope is not out of bounds at this time. I heard someone say that the ballot question does not have to have the value of the debt exclusion in the ballot question. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So the ballot question is a blanket statement. We're asking for a debt exclusion for a DPW building, and then there is not a dollar value assigned until the town meeting. Is that correct?
No, we would have the number finalized by the middle of April, which was about 2 weeks before the election.
But it does not have to appear on the ballot question.
It doesn't. I don't think that the past debt exclusion votes have either. It's not how they're written.
Okay, we'll defer this one more time.
But it's now legal to share this?
Yes,
And by the way, a 340-word limit, we can cut stuff out to put stuff in. I mean, your approach to budgeting also works with wordsmithing.
okay, so we deferred 7. Okay, 8, Acton Boxborough Regional School District Assessment. I believe this is yours, Christy. But you were not here at the last meeting. I know we spoke about it. Are you prepared to address this tonight?
I am not prepared to read anything. I am happy to discuss it. I was under the assumption that we have done all of the discussing at this point that we will do on the town budget. If we would like to have more than that level of debate, then
This is the school budget.
the school budget, yes.
Yes.
You might recall I have not been to many meetings.
I understand.
In a while.
I'm asking if you are ready to bring forward a recommendation
I
tonight.
am.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay. I move that we recommend the school budget.
Second.
Article 8.
Article 8, thank you.
And if the 79, 959, 269 number jibes with, and it does, that is the same number that is in the most recent ALG spreadsheet. Again, a reminder to newer members, just because we vote on this number tonight, if, God forbid, there is a change between now and the first Monday in May, we will revisit the topic. And also remember, we're only actually voting on what's read out loud at the town meeting. Is there any further discussion on the school budget?
When you say we're only voting on what's read out loud, like what?
Tonight, we're recommending what goes in,
Right.
what's going in the article. If for some, if something strange happens and the number is materially different come Monday night, say there's an amendment, God forbid, then we would have to re-huddle and make a new recommendation at that time.
Okay,
That's all I'm saying.
okay.
The words that the moderator speaks are binding.
Correct.
The words that are written in the warrant
Or
are not.
not.
Okay.
So it's seldom, if ever, happened, but it has happened.
Is there any further conversation on this, or has this gone through the ALG process enough that we are prepared to move forward at this time? Okay. There is a motion on the table to recommend the ABRSD assessment article number 8. 8 at this time. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
We got 1 nay. Any abstentions? No abstentions. Okay. Article 9.
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend Article 9.
Second.
Any further discussion on this, or is everyone happy with the presentation that we received from Minuteman this evening?
We don't get many that go down, so.
Yes. It's a negative number both on the capital side and on the operating side for the assessment to Acton. Let me be very clear in my language. Okay. There has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of recommending Article 9, Minuteman Regional School District Assessment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. CPC, we are going to skip over tonight because they are coming to present next meeting. Correct, Mr. Borden?
Correct.
We'll skip over 10 for this evening. That he's having his meeting tonight as well, and he'd like to come next week.
I haven't responded, so I said, yes, I did. So-
Article 11 has no language at this time, so we will defer this. Article 12 is fun. We're going to skip over that one as well. Article 13, 13 School Street. Whose is this?
Scott.
He's not here. This is why we have 2 meetings. Collective bargaining with the fire department personnel.
Mr. Chairman, as I understand it, we are pretty close with the fire department personnel, but as yet, we don't have a final agreement.
I would also like to just sort of give a heads up to the newer members of the committee. These collective bargaining agreements usually are only finalized very, very close to town meeting, and it is very common for us to actually make our determination on these articles during the pre-town meeting, which is held in the Spanish classroom in the high school, in case you haven't been to the finance committee meeting before, town meeting before. So it looks like we are deferring Article 14. Mr. Noon, are we deferring Article 15?
15 and 16.
Defer. 17, authorized revolving fund accounts. Whose is this? Are you in a position to make a recommendation tonight?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Floor is yours.
If you will kindly review each of the funds, I wanted to point out the ones really that had individual increases in them. And one of them is the building inspector revolving fund. There is a $90,000 increase, and this is due to the addition of the fire prevention officer, which is being funded from the building revolving fund. And if you will turn your attention to stormwater, there is a $100,000 increase there, and this is from the stormwater management program, a utility fee included in the fiscal 26 capital plan. Corey had submitted a request last fall, and this would fund the next step to conduct a stormwater utility feasibility study. I thank the town manager for those answers. Otherwise, I believe most of the rest are pretty steady state and unchanged.
I have a question. What's food service?
Food service, I would kindly ask the town manager.
That's the fees and inspections required to, we inspect every restaurant and everyone that serves food, and that's just how the revolving account to manage it.
Make a motion that we recommend Article 17 revolving funds.
Second. Any further conversation on this article? It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of recommending Article 17, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. Article 18 I believe is probably also yours as well.
Yeah, again, thanks to the town manager for providing some of this information. We generally update on the utilization of the commuter lot in South Acton, and there have been 150 resident stickers sold for the lot for fiscal 25, and there's 169 resident parking spaces. I don't take the train as frequently, but the lot generally for that 652 express train is not full, but pretty heavily utilized. There are some other spaces there. I won't go into that, but there's a commuter lot fund that's an undesignated fund, and that balance at the end of fiscal 24 was $335,000. And generally speaking, the revenues so far in fiscal 25 have been around $40,000 to $45,000 a quarter. And the expenses are the debt service. If you'll recall, that was, I think, 4 years ago, we purchased that 19 to 21 Maple Street property there. And then quick forecast for fiscal 26, expecting revenues to be similar. And then the expenses are that debt service for the Maple Street lot, $82,000, a transportation fund subsidy, which is the $100,000 we've discussed in the past. And then the commuter lot, just operations and maintenance at around $20,000 a year. So
we would expect to see numbers in this article before town meeting, right? This is not just a blanket, I mean, correct? Shouldn't there be numbers here?
The article itself is different than the ones that follow it. It's a different structure, so it wouldn't have the same math that you see in the ones that follow it. The amount that is being appropriated this year is on $102,563.
And is that going to make it into?
It'll be in the motion.
So it's not going to be printed in the warrant?
It is, yeah, I'm sorry. I updated this morning. It's a little small for you to see, but there's a table.
So
And
we'll defer 18 until we have the printout. Okay, Dave? 19, enterprise, septage disposal enterprise budget. Whose is this?
I think this is mine. Next several articles are about enterprise funds.
Okay,
19 is septage. Comparing the budget with last year's, the expense was up 2,600, and the revenue was also up 2,500. So nothing, it's a minor increase, nothing out of ordinary. I move to recommend.
Second.
okay. It's been moved and seconded. Motion to recommend Article 19. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Article 20.
The next one is the transfer station enterprise fund. The expenses have increased quite substantially from last year. They increased by $152,000. I wonder why there's the big increase in terms of the operating expenses. The revenue is not up. Revenue is only slightly up by $7,000, but the expenses were up $152,000 from $839,000 to $992,000.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I wonder why there's a big increase in the transfer station
Okay.
operating expenses.
Mr. Manager, would you care to address that increase?
yeah, I'm available before the meetings. If any members have questions about any of the articles, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to walk through any of these things with you. I'm not prepared to do that on this one right now, but maybe Mary Ann is.
Or should we defer it? And gang, can you close the loop with the town manager and Mary
Sure,
Ann
we can
in
do that.
advance of our next meeting?
Yes.
20 is deferred. 21,
21 is the sewers enterprise fund. The expenses were up 700,000, and which was matched by the increase of revenues, 651,000. So I don't have further questions about this.
would you like to make a recommendation on Article
I
21?
move to recommend.
Article 21 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of recommending Article 21, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? 22, ambulance enterprise budget. I'm going to put a hold on this one. I know it's yours.
Sure.
But I know one of the members who's not here tonight would like to speak on this topic.
Sure, yeah.
22 is deferred. 23, approved transportation enterprise budget. Is this yours as well?
Yes, so this one, I agree that we put on hold on the Article 22. Article 23, the transportation enterprise, the expense was up 95,000, which was matched by the subsidy increase from the general fund. I don't have further questions on this one. I don't know whether anybody have any concerns.
Do you have a recommendation?
If no, then I move to recommend.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, any further conversation on Article 23? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of recommending Article 23, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to Article 24.
Article number 4 was the easement of the land, that allowed the board to handle the easement of the land. I think that's quite standard. So I move to recommend.
Question, are there any easements that we're expecting, or is this just a standard pro forma placeholder in case anything crops up? It's just pro forma?
It looks like ordinary, some ordinary, nothing special on the easement here.
Any surprises we should know about, Mr. Town Manager?
It's,
No, nothing that comes to mind, just utilities and things like that come up throughout the year. We don't have to wait to come back to town meeting to accomplish the work.
it shows the streets, trails, drainage, sewer, utility, and other public purposes. So it's kind of a blanket.
Kind of a catch-all, but I always get nervous about catch-alls, but okay, I'm willing to trust here.
Sure.
Have you ever sat through a utility poll hearing?
Did you already move to recommend this?
No, I move to recommend.
Okay, 24 has been moved and seconded. Any further conversation? All those in favor of recommending Article 24, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Article 25. Who's got 25? These might all be Lenz, correct? 25 through 30 are Mr. Lenz? Okay, he's gonna have to take care of it next time. Okay, Article 30, Allison, I know this was assigned, yeah, yes, it's
I tried to
Allison's.
hand it over to Allison. Whether she got the email or not, I don't know, but I did email it.
And I believe, and I gave you almost no notice. We should probably defer this one until you've had a chance to look into this, correct?
Yes, I'm not prepared to discuss.
30 is yours, and we will discuss it at the next meeting. 31 is
Can I
also
just-
yours.
Can I just, the planning board is still conducting their hearing on this, so this language is going to change. It very likely will change.
30 or 31 or both?
The zoning one, so 30 and, what's 31? 30, yeah, just definitely, the plan, it may be exactly the same, but it's not considered part of the warrant until the planning board hearing process is completed. I just wanted to get it in here to give you a heads up, so just wanted.
Okay, 30 and 31, Allison, I strongly recommend you set a time to talk to the town manager on this one. Article 32. Whose is this?
It's me. I guess Ms. Hogsett.
Good luck with this one.
I nominated you for this one.
Thank you. I was hoping you would.
No, I knew this would.
Yeah, because you know. Well, although okay, so I did send an email to the director of the DPW to see if this would have any impact on the town as far as do we have gas-powered leaf blowers that they use in and around properties, and if so, what the direct impact would be on the town. But even if that were zero, this clearly has an impact on homeowners and small business owners. And I'm of course going to, I would recommend that we not recommend this article. Like I said, they come for our leaf blowers, and next they'll be our snow blowers and our lawnmowers. So they can try, they can rip them out of my cold, dead hands.
I actually support you on this motion. I'm just being frivolous, but because it's getting late at night. But yes, you're right. We wrestled with this one a year ago, but
Do you have a motion that you wish to make?
I move that we do not recommend Article 32.
You move
Second.
to not recommend. Okay, I heard, did I hear all three of you say it? Okay, we'll give it to Greg. We'll give the second to Greg. Okay. I would like to make one comment on this before we vote. Well, normally I don't bother to make comments, so I'm opening it up to comments, and I'd like to make a comment on this one. I can't remember who said it last year. I think it might have been Adam Nolde, but somebody said, did we move to a town or do we move to an HOA? This is not appropriate for the town to be pushing this on every homeowner. So I am definitely sympathetic to the concept of this does not fall under the core responsibilities of government to be meddling in people's yard work. So I will be an absolute no on this one. Would anyone else like to make a comment on this topic? Christie.
Two different things. One, Corinne, what did the town say it would cost?
He didn't get back to me.
Okay. This falls for me under the category of things that we will probably all have strong personal opinions about, but that the Finance Committee should not weigh in. I think it is extremely hard to quantify for us as an advisory board to the town's finances, whether this has an impact or not. So while we have theories about how much the town should interfere or potentially impinge on individual rights, I do not think that this should be voted on and should instead be presented as no recommendation, with us all having the ability to go up to the small microphone down the floor and speak our piece there.
If this motion fails, I will turn to you for a second motion. Mr. Jarbo.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to take that microphone. I will be elsewhere that night. But I would share this information that the Economic Development Committee has discussed this issue, is opposed to this article. And the reason why is because it makes small business harder to do in Acton. That does impact our tax base. It is an impediment to growing the 10% of our revenue sources that come from commercial as opposed to residential taxes. So yeah, this I think is the purview of the Finance Committee. It impacts our ability to raise revenue from small businesses.
I'll come back to you once everyone's had a chance. Did I see other hands?
Mine was another comment. This is not going to eliminate gas, because when you get to the fall, the leaves are heavy and wet. Battery one can't do it. My office building, they have to get the big gas ones out to do it, the big giant ones they push around. So you're not solving any problem. And plus, then we have to convert all the town equipment over to gas, over to electric, which then also might have to go with electrical upgrades in the buildings that we have. I'm thinking of the cemeteries. They might not have enough electrical outlets to plug these things in. So then it's more expense. So I'm done. I'm in favor of not recommending this article.
Mr. Noon.
So I'll speak for the HOAs. I live in a 60-acre condominium. We have a landscaping company. They do not rake leaves manually. They use gas blowers. They use even larger gas blowers. It would just cost us more to do it. So it may not affect the town's finances, but it would impact mine.
You wanted to speak again?
If we're going to listen to Mr. Jarbo's argument about economic impact, I think we also need to consider the environmental impact. California banned these a long time ago because it is an extremely pollution-heavy way. I can't remember the percentage, but a ridiculous amount came from leaf blowers. We have increased storm infrastructure expenses, et cetera. It's not as straight as a trade-off of we're going to have fewer businesses doing this, which it's all up in the air. I think this is best left to individual decisions based on their pocketbooks.
At this time, there is a motion to not recommend on the floor. It has been seconded. Any other comments before we move to a vote? We will move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the motion to not recommend, please say aye. Aye. Actually, raise your hands. Okay, all those against the motion to not recommend, please raise your hand. Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, the motion to not recommend Article 32 is approved. Carries the day. Carries the day. Okay, this gets us to Tree Protection Bylaw, Article 33.
That's also me.
You have the floor.
I'm having a call with Jim Snyder Grant on Thursday to learn more about this.
Would you like to defer until next meeting?
Yeah, let's defer it.
Done. It's also getting late.
Yep.
Good night, Mr. Mellinghoff. Was that 33? Yes. 34. Affirm home rule petition for checkout bag minimum charge. Is this new?
Thank you for that. There are two, Article 34 and 35 are home rule petitions that town meeting supported when they were first brought forward. We sent them to the state legislature and they didn't go anywhere for 2 to 3 years, which means that they, in terms of how the general court sees things, they've expired and require local approval again to be considered any further. So that's why they're shown as affirm, because it's already been approved, but it needs to be done again. It's also on consent for that reason, but happy to take any other questions.
Anyone want to take this one? Do you want to address it tonight or you want to address it next week? 35, safety residency radius requirement. This is also new.
Same issue. It's, the town meeting approved this a couple of years ago and it expired at the state, so it has to be reauthorized locally to go back to the legislature for them to consider it.
So what's the topic of this one?
This is allowing us to hire police and firefighters that live further than 15 miles away.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to take it, do you want to talk to it next time or do you want to recommend it tonight?
I'm ready to recommend it now. Yesterday, last week.
Okay, Mr. Jarbo.
Move we approve.
Move to
Second.
recommend Article 35.
Pardon me, move to recommend Article 35.
I still second.
Any conversation on this topic? All those in favor of recommending Article 35, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? Done. 36. Acceptance of the Municipal Modernization Act Amendment of 2016. Mr. Mangiarotti.
This is something that it's sort of helping us stay in compliance with our OPEB trust fund. It's not something that we're required to do, but it's been recommended because it makes it cleaner for exactly how the funds are administered. And this, our OPEB trust was established 20 years ago or so, before any of this, these state laws were available to us. The acts of 2016 created this new process, and we're proposing to accept it locally here and allow us to have that be clearer going forward.
Steve, are you prepared to take this on for next session? Make sure that it's the
I
same?
mean, we did all this. We established a trust fund, the trust is held by the state, I believe. It's paperwork more than anything else.
Do you need to investigate this any further, or are you in a position to make a recommendation?
No, I'll move to recommend.
Anybody need any conversation on this? I looked at the lawyer to make sure she's comfortable with it. Okay.
Looking up the MGL.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of recommending Article 36, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Opposed and abstentions? It's unanimous. 37 is the first of the citizen petitions. Okay. Are you the petitioner?
No, but with the permission of the petitioner, I'm authorized to speak tonight on the matter.
I'm going to have you work with Mr. Lenz.
Okay.
Because this is all related to the Citizens Library, correct?
Correct.
So work with Mr. Lenz for next session.
Thank you. And so
Same thing with Article 38 is also Citizens Library.
they're all the same because I can tell you, if you want, that the town attorney wouldn't let the summary in, and so then there was a second petition. Then the town attorney said the trustees weren't mentioned in the top, so she didn't know what it was about, so a third petition had gone. This is exactly the reason why the cost of having a town attorney look for 10 minutes at a draft citizens petition before he gathers signatures is much cheaper than having 3 petitions on the same topic. So anyway, with whatever it's worth, so how do I get in touch with Mr.?
He sent you an email.
Great, thank you very much. Oh, wait, there's a couple more coming.
No, I thought,
Those are mine, the next ones.
I'm sorry, I thought you said that all of the citizens petitions were,
The citizens petitions are the first 3 are Alex's, and then there's a Hayward Road one, and then there's the impact studies again, to not vote on, recommend major zoning proposals without impact study.
who would like to take the Hayward Road one for between now and next session?
Just a quick question, Chairman Cole, is this Article 39?
37, 38, and 39 are all related to West Acton, to the Citizens Library.
Yep.
So Articles 37, 38, and 39 are all deferred until Alex Lenz has a chance to dig into it and come back to the committee.
Okay.
So now we are talking about Article 40.
Okay, thank you.
Who on the board would like to take the topic of Hayward Main Streets and work with the petitioner between now and the next meeting? This is the first time we've seen this, by the way. Seeing no one raise their hand. Tara, I'll take this one.
Hey.
I will work with you between now and the next meeting. And then citizen petition to conduct impact study.
Can you have that one go to the person who's doing the, what did he call it, Habitat for All zoning?
That is you. You're willing to
Thank
take that one? 40, Article 41 is yours. You have homework to do in the next 2 weeks. We usually don't give 3 relatively big ones to, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out to me. If everything is cool and moving along smoothly, more power to you, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
I mean, if it's on the same topic as the other 2 articles, then it's economies of scale, right, for me to take it.
Wonderful.
Thank
It's
you.
all yours.
Is this last article the same one that was proposed last year?
It is.
And didn't the Finance Committee recommend
We did.
that?
Oh, that's right.
We did,
Last year?
Thank you.
but we have to go through making sure we have our Ts crossed and our Is dotted.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of tonight. Next on our agenda is business. I do not have minutes to bring to you tonight, although I know there's one outstanding that's my responsibility to get to you, but I didn't do it in time, so we're going to skip that one. I would like to suggest that do we have any liaison reports that are pressing for this evening? Go for it.
Maybe while the town manager is still here, we have appointed a new economic development director, and she starts April 7th. So he's announced that. It's in the email list to all of us, so we can read her background. It's pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. Any other liaison reports at this time? Okay, with that, the newest member, go ahead. Sorry, I did not mean, I missed you.
Based on the length of can we start at 7 next time, given how much we have to go through?
I'm absolutely not opposed to that. I think that makes good sense. Does anyone have any strong objections to 7 o'clock for our next meeting? Double check me when I send out the agenda, make sure I didn't screw that one up. I will try and remember, but this is exactly the type of change in routine that always trips me up.
And can you note time change on the agenda?
Right, I will. Try and remember to do that. Okay, with that,
Also, just confirm, just for the record, the date of the next meeting?
April 8th.
April 8th. Very good.
Great, move to adjourn.
Not debatable. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? We are adjourned. Thank you all.